And it's hard for me because I'm still trying to take care of my children as a blue-collar man.
The man who once saved the UFC from bankruptcy now stands in a Cape Coral, Florida restaurant, operating the fryer and wiping down tables. Tito Ortiz, the Huntington Beach bad boy who earned millions in the cage and became one of mixed martial arts' first superstars, has fallen about as far as any champion in combat sports history. In a 2024 interview with Fox News, tears welling in his eyes, Ortiz delivered 6 words that shocked the MMA world. "I lost everything after 2020.
Because I lost everything after 2020.
This is the story of a man who held the UFC light heavyweight championship for 3 years, who saved the promotion from collapse with a single fight, who earned multi-million-dollar paydays and lived like royalty in a beachfront mansion. And then, piece by piece, watched it all slip through his fingers until he was reduced to what he calls a blue-collar man, starting over in his late 40s, trying to rebuild an American dream that had completely shattered. Jacob Christopher Ortiz was born January 23, 1975, in Huntington Beach, California. His childhood reads like a blueprint for disaster. Both parents were heroin addicts. By age 5, Ortiz moved to Santa Ana, California, where he was raised alongside 3 older half-brothers in an environment that offered little stability and even less support. With parents consumed by addiction, young Tito survived by catching and selling fish at the local pier. He quickly became involved with local gangs. He started using drugs himself, including cocaine and PCP. By 13, his parents divorced, and Ortiz moved back to Huntington Beach to live with his mother. Wrestling became his salvation. He joined his high school team as a teenager and quickly excelled, winning championships and placing 4th in a statewide tournament. But even this success was nearly derailed. When Ortiz was wrapping up his final year of high school, his mother kicked him out. He began living with one of his brothers and became addicted to methamphetamines. At 19, his former wrestling coach Paul Herrera saw something in the troubled young man. Herrera encouraged Ortiz to enroll at Golden West College. Following his mentor's guidance, Tito joined the wrestling team and won more championships. He transferred to California State University, Bakersfield, where he continued wrestling, but began gravitating toward mixed martial arts. Ortiz made his UFC debut at UFC 13 in 1997, while still in college, fighting as an amateur. He won his first fight in just 31 seconds, knocking out Wes Albritton. But he lost his second match to Guy Mezger in a tournament final. After another win outside the UFC, he returned at UFC 18 in January 1999 and beat top fighter Jerry Bolander. At UFC 19, Ortiz got his revenge by defeating Mezger. After the fight, his celebration led to a long-running rivalry with Mezger's team leader, Ken Shamrock. Ortiz wore a shirt that read, "Gay Mezger is my bitch," and flipped off Mezger's corner, sparking one of the UFC's most heated feuds. In September 1999, Ortiz fought Frank Shamrock for the middleweight championship at UFC 22. He lost the fight in the 4th round, but Shamrock retired immediately afterward, leaving the championship vacant. The weight class was renamed light heavyweight, with a 205-pound limit. Ortiz fought Wanderlei Silva for the empty title at UFC 25 in April 2000. Ortiz won by unanimous decision and became the new UFC light heavyweight champion. He would defend that title 5 times, which was a record at the time, cementing his status as one of the sport's elite fighters. But beyond the fighting, Ortiz became something else entirely. He became a star. He understood promotion in a way most fighters didn't. His trash talk was legendary. His entrances were theatrical. He would dig a grave and throw dirt on his opponents. He wore controversial t-shirts. He gave inflammatory interviews. He created drama wherever he went. And the UFC, which was struggling to survive in the early 2000s, desperately needed that star power. November 22, 2002, represents the night Tito Ortiz saved the UFC. UFC 40 featured Ortiz defending his title against Ken Shamrock, his longtime rival. The build-up was pure WWE-style drama. The fight drew 150,000 pay-per-view buys, triple what previous events had generated. Ortiz dominated Shamrock for 3 rounds, battering him with strikes until the fight was stopped. UFC President Dana White has repeatedly said that UFC 40 saved the company from bankruptcy. Without that event's success, the UFC might not exist today. Tito Ortiz, for all his flaws, literally kept the promotion alive, but the reign couldn't last forever. At UFC 44 in September 2003, Ortiz faced Randy Couture, who was 40 years old at the time. Couture completely dominated Ortiz, winning by unanimous decision with scores of 49-46, 49-46, and 50-44. He even spanked Ortiz in the final round. After holding the title for 3 years, Ortiz was no longer champion. He would never wear UFC gold again. At UFC 47 in April 2004, Ortiz made a critical error against Chuck Liddell. Instead of using his wrestling to take Liddell down, he chose to stand and trade strikes with one of the sport's most dangerous punchers. The knockout came at 38 seconds of the second round. It was the first time Ortiz had ever been knocked out in his career. After the loss, Ortiz went on a 5-fight winning streak, defeating Elvis Sinosic, Patrick Cote, Ken Shamrock in a rematch, Vitor Belfort, and Forrest Griffin. Fans thought it was just a matter of time before he was champion again. At UFC 66 in December 2006, Ortiz got his rematch with Chuck Liddell for the light heavyweight championship. Liddell knocked him out again, this time at 3:59 of the third round. That loss marked the beginning of what would become one of the most brutal declines in UFC history. From that point forward, Tito Ortiz would go 1-7-1 in his next 9 UFC fights. He drew with Rashad Evans at UFC 73. He lost to Lyoto Machida. He lost to Matt Hamill, his own protege from the Ultimate Fighter reality show. He lost to Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. He lost to Ryan Bader. His only win during this stretch came against Mark Coleman in 2011. On July 7, 2012, Ortiz fought Forrest Griffin at UFC 148 in what was supposed to be his retirement fight. He lost by unanimous decision. The UFC inducted him into their Hall of Fame that same night. His final UFC record stood at 15-11-1. The man who once saved the company had limped to the finish line with a 1-7-1 record in his final 9 fights. But while his fighting career was crumbling, Ortiz's personal life was generating even more headlines. In 2006, he began a relationship with adult film actress Jenna Jameson. They had twin boys together in March 2009. The relationship was tumultuous from the start. On April 26, 2010, at 9:53 a.m., police received a 911 call from Jameson's father. When cops arrived at the couple's Huntington Beach home, Jenna Jameson had visible injuries. Ortiz was arrested on suspicion of felony domestic violence. Jameson was wearing a wrap on her right arm when she emerged from a pharmacy later that day. She told TMZ she was completely shocked by the incident, saying Ortiz had lashed out at her, leaving her feeling betrayed. Ortiz was taken to Huntington Beach jail and posted $25,000 bail. But then the story took a bizarre turn. At a news conference, Ortiz's attorney Chip Matthews claimed that Jameson was addicted to OxyContin and had been battling the addiction for more than a year. Matthews said Tito and family members had been protecting her. He claimed Jameson had a relapse and that Ortiz confronted her about drugs he found. Matthews repeatedly insisted that Tito never touched Jenna, suggesting she was high and just lost her balance. Ortiz was very emotional during the press conference, saying he hoped Jenna would be okay. He referenced his own parents' struggles with addiction and said he wouldn't let his family go through that. When reporters told Jameson about Ortiz's allegations, she responded that he was trying to save his career and then left for Las Vegas with 2 friends. On May 14, 2010, Orange County prosecutors declined to file charges against Ortiz, citing insufficient corroboration to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. The relationship between Ortiz and Jameson continued to deteriorate publicly. They finally split in 2013 after years of custody battles and public feuding over Twitter regarding their twin sons. In January 2014, Ortiz's legal troubles continued. At approximately 3:50 a.m. on January 6th, he was driving his 2012 Porsche Panamera on the northbound 405 freeway when he lost control of the vehicle and struck a concrete center median. He had been partying at the Playboy Mansion earlier that evening. Officers responded to the crash and found Ortiz along with 2 passengers on Sepulveda Boulevard, south of Santa Monica Boulevard. The Porsche received moderate damage to its right side, but no injuries were reported. Authorities arrested Ortiz on suspicion of driving under the influence. He blew a 12 on the breathalyzer, which was 50% over the California legal limit of .08. On April 30, 2014, Ortiz appeared in court and changed his plea from not guilty to no contest. In exchange, he was sentenced to 36 months probation and ordered to enroll in an alcohol education program. He was also hit with fines. While he could have received up to 6 months in jail, his celebrity status and first offense standing kept him out of prison. After leaving the UFC, Ortiz signed with Bellator MMA in 2014. He fought Stefan Bonar at Bellator 131 in November 2014, winning by first-round submission. He defeated Alexander Shlemenko at Bellator 120 in May 2015. At Bellator 142 in September 2015, he lost to Liam McGeary by submission in the first round. In January 2017, he faced Chael Sonnen at Bellator 170, winning by submission in the first round. His final Bellator fight came at Bellator 214 in January 2019, when he faced his old rival Chuck Liddell in a trilogy fight promoted by Golden Boy. Ortiz won by knockout in the first round. At the time, both fighters were 43 years old and clearly past their primes. The event was widely criticized as a dangerous money grab, but Ortiz wasn't done. On September 11, 2021, he stepped into a boxing ring for the first time in his life to face Anderson Silva at a Triller Fight Club event in Hollywood, Florida. Both men were 46 years old. The fight was contracted for 8 two-minute rounds at 195 pounds. Ortiz weighed in at 200 pounds, 5 pounds over the limit, and was forced to forfeit 20% of his purse to Silva. Silva had pressured Ortiz into the corner. Ortiz was throwing punches, but Silva ducked an Ortiz shot and landed a huge counter right hook. Silva followed up with a left hand as Ortiz slumped against the corner. Ortiz appeared to be completely unconscious, face-planting on the Sioux canvas. The knockout came at 121 of the first round. It was a brutal, humiliating ending to Ortiz's boxing debut. The event took place on the undercard of the Evander Holyfield-Vitor Belfort boxing match, with Donald Trump serving as commentator. Silva, who had already defeated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. earlier that year, looked like a professional. Ortiz looked like a man who had no business being in a boxing ring. Throughout his career, Ortiz earned substantial money. His career-high payday came in 2006 for his second bout against Chuck Liddell, earning $3.2 million, including pay-per-view revenues. Thanks to a lawsuit filed against the UFC in 2023, many of Ortiz's other fight earnings became public. He earned $820,000 against Ryan Bader, $1.2 million against Rashad Evans, $1.75 million against Antonio Nogueira, and $2.5 million for his 2012 bout against Forrest Griffin. He also reportedly earned $300,000 for his 2017 Bellator bout against Chael Sonnen and $200,000 for his 2018 fight with Chuck Liddell. In a 2015 interview with Howard Stern, Ortiz claimed he could probably pull together $50 million. He stated that he typically earned $200,000 just to show up to a fight, but by all indications, those claims were wildly exaggerated. The reality was far grimmer than Ortiz let on. He owned multiple properties, including a $3.4 million Huntington Beach house purchased in 2008, a $2.1 million Big Bear Lake house he bought from Oscar de la Hoya in 2007, and a $612,000 Scottsdale house purchased in 2006. His lavish lifestyle during his relationship with Jenna Jameson drained resources quickly. In 2015, Jameson filed a lawsuit claiming she contributed most of the down payment on the Huntington Beach home and sought 50% ownership. The legal battles over property continued for years. He was CEO of Punishment Athletics, an MMA equipment and clothing company. He ran Punishment Training Center Gym in Huntington Beach. He had 5 businesses operating in California at one point. And then came 2020. Between February 20th and April 7th, 2020, stock market indexes around the globe plummeted due to the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. With global shutdowns and no cure in sight, markets became highly volatile, resulting in panicked trading and steep declines of 10% or more. During a 3-day period in March 2020, the sell-offs were so severe that circuit breakers were activated on the New York Stock Exchange to temporarily halt trading. The Federal Open Market Committee slashed interest rates to zero, and Congress unveiled a $2.2 trillion fiscal stimulus package. By November 2020, the stock market was back at its January levels. But for Tito Ortiz, the damage was already done. Whatever investments he had made, whatever businesses he was running, the crash wiped him out. In November 2020, Ortiz won election to the Huntington Beach City Council, receiving more votes than any other candidate in city history. He ran as a Republican with the campaign slogan, "Make Huntington Beach Safe Again." On December 7, 2020, he was chosen as mayor pro tempore, a largely ceremonial role that made him next in line to become mayor. From day one, the tenure was an absolute disaster. Ortiz refused to wear a mask during city council meetings despite COVID protocols. In March 2021, 5 council members voted to keep meetings online after Ortiz said he would not wear a mask. During a special meeting, Ortiz told fellow council members he would show up and do his job, and if he got escorted out by police, that was their choice. He appeared on The Ultimate Fighter reality show as a coach, but was apparently forced to drop out during taping. The UFC announced it would replace him with Rich Franklin for the show's traditional season-ending bout. With fellow coach Chuck Liddell, his girlfriend Amber Nicole Miller generated massive social media attention in May 2021 after the couple's 2 sons were sent home from middle school for not wearing masks. Miller posted on Instagram citing a religious exemption and rejecting mask mandates because the mental health of children was more important than following guidelines. The video went viral, bringing national attention to Ortiz's anti-mask stance. Ortiz also came under fire from some Huntington Beach residents who said he had close ties to people they considered racist. The Orange County Register reported in early 2021 that Ortiz had filed for unemployment benefits despite his paid position with the city of Huntington Beach. When confronted, Ortiz claimed this was politically motivated. He explained on Facebook that his business enterprises, including his MMA gym and Punishment Athletics clothing company, had suffered tremendously due to COVID lockdowns, and that he had forfeited many income-generating opportunities to serve Huntington Beach as an elected official. The controversies piled up. There was widespread speculation that Ortiz had committed a maritime version of hit and run by crashing a boat into a private dock in Huntington Harbor and leaving the scene. A sheriff's department report later found that Ortiz had returned to the dock and tried to identify its owner, clearing him of wrongdoing, but the damage to his reputation continued to mount. On June 1, 2021, during the first in-person council meeting of the year, Ortiz stood before his colleagues and announced his resignation, effective immediately. He had served just 6 months of a 4-year term. He said character assassination by the media and leaks from City Hall prompted the decision. His 2 sons had recently made national news when they were sent home from school without face masks. Ortiz said he made the decision on behalf of his family. "This job isn't working for me," Ortiz said. He added that he thought he was up to the job and was sorry to let down many of his supportive constituents. After the resignation, the council went into recess. When the 6 remaining council members reconvened, they did not immediately make comments. With some irony, Ortiz's last few minutes on the council came the first night members met inside the chamber for all of 2021. Shortly after his resignation, Ortiz put his beachfront home on the market ahead of a move to Florida. His girlfriend Amber Nicole Miller explained on Instagram that after last year's disastrous school situation, they made the decision to pull their children from the California school system before they were forced into what she called over-sexualized, divisive, opinion-based curriculum. She said their beautiful state continued to plummet into an unrecognizable home and that a move was the only answer. In February 2022, Ortiz appeared on a panel at the Conservative Political Action Conference. He moved to Cape Coral, Florida, and opened Tito's Cantina Tequila Bar and Grill in 2023. Just 3 months after opening, the restaurant was hit with 5 health code violations, including raw animal foods not properly separated from each other in this holding unit and a dishwashing machine being used without proper sanitizing substance. The report also noted toxic substances improperly stored near clean plates. On March 21, 2024, Ortiz appeared on Jesse Watters' Primetime on Fox News. The interview was supposed to focus on border control and Latino voters, but what emerged was a raw, emotional confession from a broken man. Ortiz talked about the border crisis, criticizing President Biden's policies. Then he said something that shocked viewers. "It's sad for this country," Ortiz said. "And I hope people listen to me, as a blue-collared man that has to relocate here in Florida, open my own business, Tito's Cantina Tequila Bar and Grill, here in Cape Coral, to redo the American dream, because I lost everything after 20. And it's hard for me because I'm still trying to take care of my children as a blue-collar man. People, we need to come together. We need to make sure we make America great again. The man who claimed he could pull together $50 million in 2015 was now describing himself as a blue-collar worker trying to redo the American dream. The man who earned $3.2 million for a single fight was now operating a restaurant that had already racked up health code violations. The man who saved the UFC from bankruptcy was now begging for solidarity on national television. Current estimates of Tito Ortiz's net worth vary wildly. Some sources claim $20 million, others say $28 million. But these figures are almost certainly inflated. They're based on outdated information and don't account for his 2024 admission that he lost everything. The reality appears far grimmer. Ortiz sold his longtime Huntington Beach home for $4 million. He's operating a small restaurant in Cape Coral, Florida. He's appeared on Fox News multiple times describing himself as a blue-collar man who lost everything. These are not the actions of a man worth tens of millions of dollars. The tragic arc of Tito Ortiz's life follows a pattern seen across combat sports. A troubled childhood, athletic talent as an escape route, meteoric rise to fame and fortune, poor financial management, failed businesses, legal troubles, relationship disasters, a refusal to step away from competition when skills have clearly eroded, and finally, a fall from grace so complete that the former champion ends up nearly broke, scrambling to rebuild at an age when most athletes are settling into comfortable retirement. Ortiz's childhood with heroin-addicted parents created a man who never learned financial literacy or emotional regulation. His early success in the UFC came during an era when fighter pay was minuscule compared to today's standards, even for champions. While he earned millions, he spent lavishly on properties, cars, and lifestyle expenses. The relationship with Jenna Jameson was marked by public feuds, a domestic violence arrest, and expensive legal battles over property and custody. The DUI arrest and conviction added legal fees and damaged his marketability. His political career was a 6-month catastrophe that alienated much of his fan base and cost him opportunities in California's MMA industry. But perhaps the most damaging factor was his inability to walk away from fighting when his skills had clearly deteriorated. From UFC 66 in 2006 through his boxing match with Anderson Silva in 2021, Ortiz continued competing despite going 1-7-1 in the UFC and suffering brutal knockouts. Each loss made him less marketable. Each knockout likely contributed to long-term brain damage that may have affected his decision-making abilities. The Anderson Silva knockout in 2021, coming just months after he resigned from the Huntington Beach City Council, represents the absolute nadir of his career. A 46-year-old man with no boxing experience getting face-planted unconscious in 81 seconds, having missed weight by 5 pounds and forfeited 20% of his purse. It's difficult to imagine a more humiliating ending to a combat sports career. The 2020 stock market crash appears to have been the final blow. While Ortiz claimed he lost everything, he hasn't provided specific details about what investments or businesses were wiped out. What's clear is that by 2024, the man who once claimed a $50 million net worth was publicly describing himself as a blue-collar worker trying to redo the American dream. Tito Ortiz saved the UFC. UFC 40 generated the pay-per-view numbers that proved the business model could work. Without that success, the UFC might have collapsed before the sport went mainstream. He was one of the first true stars of mixed martial arts, understanding promotion and trash talk years before Conor McGregor made it an art form. He held the light heavyweight championship for 3 years and defended it 5 times. He was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2012. His fights with Ken Shamrock, Chuck Liddell, and Randy Couture are part of MMA history, but the fall has been equally historic. From champion to laughingstock, from millionaire to self-described blue-collar man, from mayor pro tempore to unemployed restaurant owner with health code violations. From Huntington Beach mansion to Cape Coral fresh start, the tragedy isn't just about money lost. It's about a life that could have been so different. If Ortiz had walked away after UFC 148 in 2012 with his Hall of Fame induction, he could have transitioned into commentary, coaching, or promotion. If he had invested wisely instead of spending lavishly, he could have built generational wealth. If he had avoided the domestic violence arrest, the DUI, and the political controversies, he could have maintained his marketability and earning potential. Instead, at 49 years old, Tito Ortiz stands behind the counter of a Florida restaurant, describing himself as a blue-collar man who lost everything. The Huntington Beach bad boy who saved the UFC is now just another cautionary tale about the perils of combat sports, poor financial management, and the cruel reality that fame and athletic ability don't guarantee long-term success. In his Fox News interview, Ortiz spoke about hope, about redoing the American dream, about taking care of his children. But the subtext was clear. This is a man who had it all and lost it. A champion reduced to starting over. A millionaire scraping by. The story of Tito Ortiz stands as perhaps the most dramatic fall from grace in UFC history. Not because he lost his championship, many champions have done that. Not because he went broke, plenty of fighters have mismanaged their money. But because he combined all of these failures into one spectacular collapse that played out in public across 2 decades. Every mistake documented, every controversy amplified, every knockout replayed, every financial problem exposed. And now, in 2024, the final image is of a 49-year-old man on conservative news television, fighting back tears, admitting he lost everything, asking America to come together. It's a devastating ending for a fighter who once stood atop the sport, who saved the promotion, who earned millions, who could have had it all. Tito Ortiz got into the Hall of Fame, but he couldn't escape his demons, his spending, his poor decisions, or the unforgiving nature of time and finance. The Huntington Beach bad boy is bad no more. He's just another broken-down fighter trying to survive, trying to provide for his kids, trying to rebuild something that can never truly be repaired. That's the tragic fate of Tito Ortiz.